This is a relay project.
Real Talk starts right now. Here's Ryan Jesperson.
It's Wednesday, October 19th, and thanks a lot for joining us here on Real Talk. Thanks a lot. We got a great show in store today. Journalist Brandi Morin is going to be hanging out with us in just a few minutes. She's back from this whirlwind tour. She was in New York. She was in Chicago. She's been speaking to journalism students across North America. An absolutely unbelievable year for the author of Our Voice of Fire. It's a bestseller. It remains there. I'm reading two or three different things about Brandi's book when I see people talking about it on social media. Number one, it's blowing readers away. It's making a major impact. Number two, people are having a hard time finding it. It appears to be sold out everywhere that it occupied shelves. The more that people hear about it, the more they're looking to track it down, which is fantastic. And number three, there was a special connection when Brandi was in New York to accept the Edward R. Murrow Award for her journalism. Some storytelling for a mini-series, a 6-part series for Al Jazeera English on Canada's missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. This, one of the top-shelf journalism awards. I mean, she described it as the Academy Awards of journalism. I'm looking forward to getting her take on that, but she just had a chance to present that award, to show it to her dad. And that's where it gets personal, and that's where it gets meaningful. And Brandi's going to tell us some stories and get us up to speed on what she's covering and what she's talking about these days. That in just a bit. We're going to take you out to Jasper today for MyJasper memories. The Jasper Dark Sky Festival is underway as we speak. If you don't have plans for this weekend, you may want to consider that, regardless of where you're tuning in from Canada right now. This is an amazing way to see the Jasper Dark Sky Preserve, to see the Canadian Rocky Mountains in a very special way, and learn more about the universe around us. Plus, prompted by a tweet from a listener, a subscriber to Real Talk, Laurel, yesterday, I appreciate it. We're going to try to get to the bottom of the question I think a lot of people have been asking this week, and that is, why does John Hicks, the technical producer of this show, hate art?
Oh, God, come on.
And I'm hoping that we can get into this and get to the bottom of this question.
I love art. Technically, I am an artist. I mean, questionable, but
not even technically. Definitively, you are an artist.
Technical graphic artist, I guess.
But yeah. Laurel yesterday wanted to know, and we'll track down the tweet. We're going to have some fun with it, obviously. This is based off the story of the demonstrators that targeted Van Gogh's sunflowers in the National Gallery with tomato soup. Of course, it was covered by glass. They were trying to prove a point about climate change, about cost of living increases. It got us talking about art. And you basically said, I don't get it. You said, I just don't get it.
Yeah.
And I think we were talking about the difference between a painting that's $10 and a painting that's $100 million. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So it prompted Laurel to reach out, and she said she was actually really upset at you. And so I thought maybe we could hash it out. If the show's called Real Talk and we never have real talk about real life stuff, then what kind of a show is it? So we'll keep an eye on the live chat for that. We're also, of course, going to keep an eye on our hashtag. That's RealTalkRJ. That's where you can hit us up on Twitter or Instagram. We're on TikTok, too, by the way. Give us a follow. That hashtag is powered by our friends at Park Power. They're in the internet, electricity, and natural gas game, your friendly local utilities provider. They want to remind you that this time of year, people are going to set themselves up either for success or for sticker shock. If you're running electric space heaters this winter, maybe you're heating your garage with some sort of electric device. You're going to want to be careful about that, by the way. Or whether you're using more natural gas than usual, the costs are up. People are going to be firing up their furnaces shortly if you haven't already. Why not compare the rates, the fixed rates, the variable rates, what you could be paying with Park Power, bundle your services to save more, and use the promo code 2022-REALTALK to knock $70 off your first bill from Park Power. Now, once you're hooked up with Park Power, you're going to also want to consider elevating your energy game with Kubi Energy. You know, they're Western Canada's definitive source for reputable Tesla-certified solar installations. Kubi's got you covered for solar energy solutions to power your life. You know, they've got a lot of great questions that they answer. The frequently asked questions link on their blog at kubienergy.ca. You know, people often ask, for example, where do the batteries go? Well, you don't need batteries. You know, rather than pay to store your excess energy in a battery, you can sell it back to the grid, sell it back to Park Power, get a credit for it. A lot of times you can even get a premium through it with Park Power. Of course, if you do need batteries, they offer the Tesla Powerwall at Kubi Energy. That's kubienergy.ca. Brandi Morin has been a wonderful friend of this show from the moment we launched. She's a member of our editorial board, and boy, are we blown away by the power, the impact of her career, in particular over the past couple of years, telling stories oftentimes fueled by her unique perspective as an Indigenous journalist working in Canada, telling the stories that demand to be told. Her work with Al Jazeera English on a mini-series most recently earned her an Edward R. Murrow Award for Journalism, which she accepted in person in New York City just a short time ago. Brandi Morin joining us live on today's edition of Real Talk. It's so nice to see your face again, although I feel like I've been seeing it everywhere. The photos from New York and Chicago and the awards and Lit Fest, and you're speaking to journalism students, and what a whirlwind for you.
Thank you, Taniki. Hello, Ryan. Thank you so much. It's good to see you.
We wanted to invite you to get into studio here. I'm excited to show you the studio at some point. And you said to me, you're like, listen, you're like, if my memory serves correct, your flight like just landed. You're just getting home. You're a mom. You miss your kids, and you're already getting back at it, telling another story. I mean, it's nonstop for you right now.
Yes, so I was gone to New York and Chicago for a week. My flight came home at 2 a.m. on Sunday. I literally had maybe a few hours with my family. Then I did Lit Fest, and I am here at home, and I fly out again tomorrow to Vancouver for the Vancouver International Authors Festival. So it's a little busy.
Well, listen, I want to talk to you about your Edward R. Murrow Award. I know you had a chance to show it to your dad, and that meant a lot to you. I want to talk about the miniseries, the feature series that earned you that award. I mean, you earned the award. You know what I mean? But why don't we talk? I mean, you've just spoken at Lit Fest in Edmonton. You're on your way to the Authors Festival in Vancouver. Our Voice of Fire. We talked to you in that book just before I think that book was set to come out, and we knew it was going to be a powerful story. It's great and powerful and oftentimes very moving. And sometimes very difficult subject matter, insight into what fuels your journalism. But Brandi, did you understand fully the impact that this book was going to have, or are you still pinching yourself when you wake up every morning?
Oh, man. When it became a bestseller within the first couple of weeks of its release, I was really stunned. This is my first experience writing a book, and it has been a whirlwind, and so it's something that I am still taking in, and it's a lot of work. It's a lot more work promoting the book and doing the interviews and engaging with people than it was actually to write the book. It's such a new experience. And, even at Lit Fest, the most recent event that I did with my book, there, was people coming up to me and crying and just thanking me, for sharing my story because of how much it impacted them and how they were inspired to, step out and pursue something in their life, because I overcame barrier after barrier, and kept moving forward, to accomplish, these things that I'm doing. And so having those personal interactions with people, that's where I'm seeing these impacts, and I'm blown away because, some of them are a lot older than me, like they're all ages, but to hear these people tell me, sorry.
No,
Leonard.
We're dog friendly. Leonard?
Yes, Leonard, come here.
What? Yeah, let's see. What kind of dog is Leonard? What breed is Leonard?
Sure.
Or what's
I'll
Leonard's
show you.
story?
Come here, buddy.
Lenny. I love it. Your dog shares a name with Connor McDavid's dog,
Does he?
Yeah. Oh, Leonard! What a handsome Chihuahua! Wow.
He's just a puppy.
He's just a pup?
Yeah, he is. I got him in June, and he's about 6-7 months old now, and He's a very good little dog, but sometimes he gets a little excited if he thinks someone's here.
Well, he's doing his job then. That's good. Well, keep Leonard on camera. This is my heart is full when there's animals in the picture. Yeah, no, I mean, with regards to your book and the power of it and everything that's been happening, I mean, the feedback, I would imagine the personal stories. I mean, your story is one of survival. And Brandi, I encourage people to go back in our Real Talk archives and search for your previous conversations with us because we really dig into the book. I mean, you're a survivor.
Yeah.
You know, and you really put it out there for everybody. Was there one conversation or one bit of feedback? Was there one moment from a reader that really made an impact? Like when I ask you the question, is there one that comes to mind right away?
Not necessarily one specifically, but there were many even other survivors that have reached out to me to thank me because they did not feel that they were able to talk about or share their stories of survival. And so this helped them, you know, through some of their own healing processes. And I've had people comment to me about the book saying, oh, it's just so raw and honest and authentic. And I'm like, well, of course it is. Like it's a memoir. And I guess people aren't really used to that authenticity, I guess, the way that people have been responding to it. You know, I don't beat around the bush about my experiences, but now that I think about it, I hear the same things when people are responding to the journalism that I do, in that it's authentic and the people, the stories come through in a very organic, raw way. And so I think people are, you know, really hungering for that kind of truth, for that kind of realness. You know, this is real talk.
Yeah.
Right? So
well, I guarantee people are. I mean, it's captivating, Brandi, and I'm not just here to pump your tires. My support of your career and my you know, what do I say? My interest in virtually everything you do is from a position of conviction. Like, you know, even, I mean, I think of like your work on the West Coast and covering the Wet'suwet'en story in the blockades. And I want to chat a bit about that. Let's make some time for that. Your passionate storytelling, demanding that this nation and the people in Canada pay more attention to this very real issue, this epidemic of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, this Edward R. Murrow Award that you received. I mean, you know, you tell stories in a very different way than most. You know, your story's on the ground, so to speak. And I think that also, to state the obvious, something I know you're well aware of, Indigenous representation in storytelling is something that people in this country are demanding to see more of. And your work is evidence that there's a real audience for it.
Well, you know, Ryan, I've been doing this for over 10 years now, and it wasn't always this way. You know, I had to, you know, spar with editors and decision makers many times in the mainstream regarding the importance of our stories. And that's why I decided to, you know, I was at some Indigenous news organizations. I was at APT and National News. I was at CBC Indigenous. But I found that the overall response for a long time in this country to the gross racism and, you know, human rights violations that are happening was met with apathy and indifference. And I was really sick of that. So that's when I decided to reach outside of the borders of this country and start to bring these stories to the world. And that's when I started working with Al Jazeera English. That's when I started doing work with, you know, the New York Times and eventually National Geographic and, you know, all of these other mediums to get the word out there. And that's when I started seeing huge breakthroughs. But they happened to coincide with a lot of the transformations that were happening within this country as a whole. And, you know, even though I've been doing this for so many years, unfortunately, it was only just a couple of years ago when Canada was really shaken up enough when the graves of our children started to be unveiled. And the rest of the world, was watching in horror and disbelief. And it was then, again, that another turn took for people to be open and ready for the truths, right? Which are ugly, which are uncomfortable, but they're essential. They're essential in regards to this truth and reckoning process.
So well said. Can we, for those that are going to be listening to this on the podcast, can we get you to describe your look in New York City on awards night? Did I hear it was Derek Jagodinski? Is that right? That designed your look. He's a brilliant designer. And then can we talk about your makeup?
Yeah. So, I approached Derek. He's an incredible Cree designer based in Edmonton, and this is a black tie event. And I wanted to make a statement. I wanted to support Indigenous designers. So I chose this bright, beautiful blazer that he had made and paired it with these earrings made by Savage Rose, an artist named Melanie Parsons, based in Treaty 6, Calgary. I had her commission me these feather earrings, these long red feather earrings for missing and murdered, in order to honor and bring awareness. And so when I was at the awards, we weren't given an opportunity to make a statement or to make a speech. And so we go up on stage, we get our awards, the audience applause, we get our photo taken. So because of the content of what I won for, which is the crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, I wanted to make a statement in that moment. And so I decided to paint my hand, that red handprint on my face, in order to bring awareness to that. And it's a genocide. And so that was very, obviously very prominent. And I think it made the statement very well. So.
It's we're Johnny was just showing us an image of you holding the Edward R. Murrow Award. With that makeup, this solemn look on your face, and it is a powerful image. And it says 1,000 words or many more. Hey, had you been given an opportunity, to put you on the spot here, Brandi, had you been given an opportunity to address the audience, to address those that were watching the live stream, what would you have said?
Well, I would have said, this award is for the families of our sisters, our daughters, and our mothers who have been stolen. This award is for, all of the families that are sharing these stories and living, with this agony of this genocide, and for the survivors, that have lived through this violence. And I would have said that, it's time that our stories have, are brought into the limelight, that I had worked for so long for this to happen. And I would have said hi to Al Jazeera English for investing in this, because how it worked, Ryan, is I had been pitching this series. It's a 6-part series, multimedia with photos and videos. By the way, Amber Bracken, award-winning photojournalist,
brilliant,
did the photography and the videography for this series. But this series I pitched for a year to several different media organizations, and Al Jazeera kind of had it on their backbench. It was a lot, it required a big investment, because it was like writing a book. Each of these, there were 6 parts, and each was like a chapter, like 5,000 words or more. So at the end of the year, it was December, I think it was 2000. It was the end of the year. They had a pot of money left over. They contacted me and said, hey, do you want to go do these series? This is what we have. And I said, yep, let's do it. I had done most of the research already. So I think by the end of January, Amber and I were out on the road working on that series. And it started to get published. It started rolling out the fall of 2021, and then earlier this year.
I don't think
And
people understand what goes. So you let's say you get the green light in the beginning of 2020, and this thing starts rolling out about a year later. Correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, I did a lot of work in TV. I produced a miniseries out of Ethiopia back in the day in 2008, and I remember, saying to people sort of try to get some insight into what goes into a project like that, and typically we would say, with exceptions, for every minute of storytelling that you see, for every minute of finished product, there's about an hour of raw video that's been shot and worked on, let alone, I mean, the sound, the video, the editing crews that go into it, the writing is, I mean, interviewing is one thing, right? The visual storytelling is one thing, but the writing, which is where I think you really shine. But there's so much that goes into something, a project like this, let alone one where you're probably feeling an immense degree of conviction about. Like, how personally important to you is this project?
Well, it is, because there's literal lives on the line, right? And so, it was the end of December 2020 that we had the green light and the funding. It started rolling out the fall of 2021 and then early 2022. But not only is the writing, Ryan, there's the research, which is extensive as well. You have pre-research, you have post-research. We're on the ground for a few weeks at a time, and long hours meeting with families who have endured trauma, taking in all of this. I met with the two lead investigators of the EPANA unit, which is a unit of the RCMP that is specifically assigned to the Highway of Tears. These two officers were, helped head the Robert Picton case. They flew up from Burnaby to Prince George for this meeting. We met with them, we filmed. There was so much involved, absolutely. And then coming home and putting that all together, like literally they were like little chapters from a book. And the passion that goes into that. Of course, yes, I'm a survivor of this crisis, but I think about it as, this is an ongoing genocide. This is so important. And I think where I really do best in my work is, yes, in my writing, but I really strive for people to connect with the human beings in my stories. And that comes through. I take people to the scenes. I describe, their lives and, their character. And I think people connect with that, because that's missing a lot of times, especially in the way that our stories have been portrayed. There's been a lot of context that's been missing and left out. There's been, that humanity missing, which has, really contributed to a lot of this racism and ongoing violence against our people. Because understand how much power the media has to help form the perceptions of society about our own societies, right? So the influence that we have and the power and responsibilities that we have is really huge. I take this seriously. This isn't just, a day job, right? I consider this to be a purpose, a life purpose, and I'm just getting started. Just because I got this award, it doesn't mean, that, that I'm stopping anytime soon. I'll show you the award really quick.
Yeah, I know. I should have asked to see it already. I'm like, why doesn't she have it on the shelf right behind her? If I get a Murrow Award, carrying that thing around like a Stanley Cup ring. Look at that.
Yeah.
Hey, so what is that like? Honestly, what goes through your mind when you're holding this thing? Like, Brandi, for people outside of journalism, this is like someone winning an Emmy. This is like winning an Academy Award.
Well, like I say that, yes, like other than a Pulitzer Prize, right? This is the top in the world.
Yeah.
This is the top in the world. And so I consider it like I won an Oscar of the journalism. And you know what? I'm going to boast about it to the world, because I know what this represents. This represents representation for our people. This represents a breakthrough for our, our stories. Like, I was rubbing shoulders there with the most powerful people in this industry. And it was funny because the majority of them were from the US. There was a couple of people that won, I believe, from the UBC. I'm not I can't remember exactly, but I was walking around at dinner time. There was a woman that had come from New York City, a former reporter that had known of my work, and she got tickets at the last minute. By the way, tickets were like $500 and some dollars Canadian. It was very fancy, at Gotham Hall in New York City. An incredible venue. I felt like it's the Batman Award or something. But anyway, so this woman was bringing me around and introducing me to people, and this one woman that she introduced me to, I was talking with, and she was talking about my work and congratulating me, and like we were holding hands for a couple of minutes, and I was like, thank you. And we walked away, and the lady that was leading me around, she said, well, don't you know who that is? And I said, no, who is it? Anyways, she's apparently known as like the most powerful woman in the broadcast world. And she's in her 70s and she's still out there working. Her name's Andrea Mitchell.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah. And yeah. And so I, it was just moments like these. And I was just like, I had, brought their attention, to this. I don't know if they had been aware about it before, but in that moment I did. And the applause was the longest of the night when I went up there. And so it was that, not that I'm boasting for myself. It's because I'm representing, these stories. I'm representing our sisters and such in that. Right. And
nobody who follows you would think that you're boasting. It's not. It's actually like one of the things I love is that you have this. Can I tell you about this? So people always ask me what's my favorite quote, and I always want to have one locked and loaded. And my pal Jonathan, he told me this. He said it sort of off the cuff when we were still in university, and it stuck with me for 25 years. And he says a person should always wear a coat with two pockets. And in one pocket, a note that says, I am nothing but dust and ash. And in the other pocket, a note that says, the world was created for me.
wow.
And I feel like you have found that balance. There's because still, I mean, you're an accomplished and award-winning journalist, but you're also like, you have so much runway. And so so there's like kind of this wonderment part of it. Like you're like, I'm in New York. This is amazing. I'm winning a Murrow Award. This is incredible. And then at the same time, you're like, you belong. You're like, hell yeah. Like, look at my work. And
come on though, Ryan. It wasn't
balance.
like that. I had my friend with me and I was nervous as hell.
Were you?
I said, I don't know how to roll with these high rollers. And my friend looked at me before she walked away and she said, Brandi, you're the high roller.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they better. Hey, but okay. So you're hobnobbing and rubbing shoulders, and like you're. I would hope that you're grabbing a bunch of business cards, and people are starting to follow you on Twitter. You never know who you're going to work with next. I mean, the opportunities I would imagine are incredible to be in these rooms. But take us back to the more personal moment. Take us back to the moment where you put this award in your dad's hands.
Oh, I call my dad from the different places that I travel, and, he knew that I was there, and he came home because he works out of town. So it's been a few months since I seen him, and he's kind of just an old school kind of cowboy guy. And I just showed him the award, and he looked it over, and he just, I don't even remember exactly what he said because it was kind of like just a moment. And, I know that he's really proud of me. He always tells, he always would say, what are you doing? Just, get a steady job here and get a steady paycheck. But then each time that I go out and, accomplish another milestone, I know that he's proud of me for not just settling for the status quo and maybe, not listening to his advice, which I know that came from a place of love, that he wanted me to be, safe and taken care of and stable, because this is a business. As a freelancer and doing this, it's not always stable. And so it was a mixed moment of like, okay, see what I did, Dad? And and him, being proud. So
Oh, it's amazing. I just dropped in the live chat. I've just been kind of been chatting with you. I feel like we're just having a coffee together, so I haven't been reading what people have been saying. But your work is making a real impact on people. And Sharon Morin is watching this morning. She says, after I read Brandi's book, all I wanted to do was hug her. It's so relatable. She said it's so relatable to our urban Indigenous lives, which is a powerful comment. There was another one that I wanted to read to you because I know that this is going to mean something to you, Brandi. And it's, first of all, what's Randy talking about here? Randy wants me to let you know that he's wearing your mixed blood hat at the moment. What does that mean?
Oh my gosh. So a few years ago, after I had my baby Alasia, I was on maternity leave and I got bored. So I designed an Indigenous apparel line with incorporating Cree and Mohawk language on it, and I actually did very well with that for a while. I did some runway shows, and so it was called Mixed Blood Apparel. So he's probably wearing my hat from that.
Wow.
And I just
is that still, like, if I Google that, is that still active? Are you still?
You can Google it on Instagram under Mixed Blood Apparel. It did very well, Ryan, but I just I couldn't find the right manufacturing to produce it sustainably and stuff. So, and then I got back into my journalism, so it kind of fell to the wayside. But if you look at the photos, I did some pretty nice designs and did some leggings and incorporated a lot of these to empower our people, because our languages are endangered and our languages are connected to who we are culturally and every aspect of our life. So I was on a mission to revive that.
Add fashion designer to the list. All right, well, fine then. But here's the comment that I wanted to get to because I think that this will mean something to you. Kimberly is watching us live right now. She says you helped her get out of bed this morning. She says she's been struggling with depression and she's been having a hard time getting up, but she didn't want to miss this live stream. How does that make you feel?
Oh my gosh, that is amazing. I've been there. I've struggled with depression. And if you go out and read my book, you'll read, how I've been there and how I clawed my way out, every time. And so I encourage you to look for that fire and to unleash it, to unleash your fire, of purpose in this world, and it'll find you. Wow, that's beautiful. Hi, Kimberly.
See, people are starting to understand probably why we left the second half of the show open. We didn't book a second guest because you and I have been waiting to catch up for a long time, and I didn't want to rush this conversation. Can I ask you about a couple items in the news before we let you get? I know today's precious time with your family, and we don't want to infringe on that. But why don't you get us up to speed? I know that. So one of the things that I think a great journalist does, and a journalist that understands the importance of supported storytelling, is that you don't just promote your own work. And people that follow you on Twitter at Songsters28 will see your timeline is full of you're promoting and amplifying other work, including published in the Tyee and other journalists that are covering what's happening in Wet'suwet'en right now. There are millions of dollars left outstanding right now with Indigenous partnerships. They're suing Coastal GasLink pipeline. The numbers of the policing up through that Wet'suwet'en blockade related to the CGL pipeline construction. Canadians have just been informed that it's now topped $25 million, the cost of public cost of policing that dispute there. I know that this is a story that you have reported on. It's a story you're keeping an eye on. Can you get us up to speed on what's really catching your eye with regards to where this development is going up to the minute, so to speak?
Yeah. So first off, I'd like to note that $25 million of public money is being used to enact human rights violations against First Nations people, the sovereign Wet'suwet'en, hereditary leadership, and land defenders that have title to their land, which has been proven in BC's highest court systems. They're being removed for a pipeline project, CGL LNG pipeline, to be bulldozed through their territories without their consent. And the militarized police go in there with attack dogs and guns and, all sorts of different intimidation, and have arrested these people, and they're out there surveilling them and following them hand in hand with this company, along with the different levels of government. And this is where your money's going. This is where, if people care about reconciliation, this is where this is key for you to stand up and declare that this is wrong. Because I have said before, and I say this, people say, oh, back in the day, if I would have known that, residential schools were happening and these children were being taken and abused, or, other different atrocities, I would have done something. But then I look now and I say, well, we have this genocide of missing and murdered women and girls. We have instances like this where our people are being, treated with violence right out in the open, and people stand back and do nothing. So if people actually care about reconciliation, I encourage them to do something in whatever way that they can, because it's wrong. And I am a journalist and I report on these things. And, I am not impartial at all when it comes to human rights violations. This is wrong. I know the facts of the story. And, Canada, which is known around the world as this utopian place to live that upholds human rights violations, is a facade. And it's getting away with this violence. It's no different than Russia invading Ukraine. Canada, this corporation, are invading sovereign territory.
Brandi, I know that you've seen some of the chatter, and I'm sure that you see people clap back at your reporting. You recently posted a piece back in end of September, so about 3 weeks ago at ricochet.media. People can read it. Your story on the Wet'suwet'en blockade. You spoke to Josie Alec, and I'm hoping you could tell us about her and what's fueling her conviction, her activism, if you want to call it that, her involvement here. The point I wanted to get at with some of this feedback is you'll see people allege that there's not a consensus among those First Nations with regards to industry, with regards to economic opportunity, with regards to employment opportunities. There have been allegations that so-called professional protesters are there, in a sense, speaking on behalf of the people who have occupied that territory for thousands and thousands of years, that unceded territory. Mm-hmm. What have you seen on the ground? Who have you talked to? What's your sense, and what would be your response to that take on this story?
Yeah, so in regards to people, discussing, about consent, that comes from a place of ignorance. That comes from a place of these corporations skirting around their responsibilities to get the consent of the true title holders of that area, and portraying to the public that they do have the consent. So, the corporation CGL, will state that they have permission from all 20 of the First Nations along the route, to, signed agreements for this pipeline. When in fact, those are the elected leadership of these nations, which, do not have any say over the traditional territories. They have control over the reservation boundaries. And people, please understand that these systems under the Indian Act of the elected chief and council systems were put in place by the federal government in order to control the First Nations people. So these particular Wet'suwet'en people had held on to their hereditary leadership systems, which is their own laws, their own culture and traditional systems that have been in place for millennia. And those still stand, and they have the say over what happens in their traditional territories. This was proven, in a Supreme Court of Canada case, in the Dalgamuth versus Gistewe case. So, when it comes to that, that's who has the say, and they speak for, all of the Wet'suwet'en people. And I'm going to tell you quickly too, several years ago, I went and traveled along the pipeline route. I did a series for the National Observer and met with about 5 different First Nations along the route to get their take. And each one of those elected leaders told me they were coerced by the province and the company into signing in. And this is a very complex conflict with lots of different layers, right? We have reservations that are dealing with, poverty and so many different things, a lack of different economic opportunities, right? And then I've been on the ground there several times, and they have what they call supporters that go there from, different places that maybe are non-native. That go there and work at these different settlements that they have on their traditional territories sometimes. But everybody that I interact with there are Wet'suwet'en people. They are Indigenous, and they are the ones who make the decisions from the top of the leadership down, from the hereditary leaders. And then they have, others, on the ground that, that work there and live there. So, I mean, there's a lot of different rumors that swirl around and conspiracies. But when it comes down to this, these are, a group of people that have been historically oppressed, that are standing up for the last of what they do have, that haven't been ravaged and taken. And the majority of the people up there on the ground, Ryan, are women. They're Indigenous mothers that are on the front lines of this, protecting these territories for their future generations.
Mark Doran's watching us. He's Mark does yeoman's work when it comes to getting, he essentially Orphan Wells is Mark's jam. And he wants to see cleanup happen. And Mark's been on the show before, and this guy is passionate about it. Anyway, he chimes in and says, closely related to land rights is the right to be safe on one's own land adjacent to land taken for an energy purpose. Mark says, I filed court action on that yesterday. That's an interesting point. Before we let you get to your family, final question for you, Brandi, and we got to get your hands dirty a little bit and talk some politics here, because you went on the record. I know you're not afraid to get into it. Alberta's new Premier, Danielle Smith, issuing, I don't know, second or third apology in her first week. It's been a bumpy road in the first week for Premier Danielle Smith. Yesterday, releasing this after Real Talk wrapped, by the way, reads the headline of the statement: Premier condemns Russian invasion of Ukraine, apologizes for past comments. She says, I categorically condemn the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the indescribable suffering Russia has and still is inflicting upon the Ukrainian people. Prior to re-entering politics earlier this year, I made ill-informed comments on Russia's invasion of Ukraine. My knowledge and opinion of this matter has drastically evolved since that time. I apologize for the previous comments. I stand with Ukraine and the Ukrainian people. It was politically inconvenient for the premier to have, hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians in Alberta pissed off at her, quite frankly. So I think that's what prompted that. You were tweeting from Chicago, Illinois, and I saw that and I know you don't take this lightly, especially considering your reputation as a journalist, etc. You said you have deep concerns about the new premier. You said she has a far-right agenda. You said she's displayed disregard for people experiencing discrimination. And then you touched on the idea that these unmarked graves at residential schools, former schools in Canada, the idea that they may be fake news or that they're unverified. I wanted to ask you about this before we say goodbye.
Yeah, so it is documented that Danielle Smith has referenced the unmarked graves of our children as fake news. That is horrifying. I can't even fathom it. And for me, I personally used to work with Danielle Smith. Okay. In 2014, I was, in between doing my journalism, I was freelancing on the side, but I was very green to politics at that time. And I saw a job opening, and I was hired on as a scheduling assistant. So I worked with her executive assistant. And Danielle had me write, she found out I was a writer and stuff. So she had me write some of her speeches that had to do with, Indigenous topics and stuff. And I only stayed there for about 8 months when she was leader of the Wild Rose. And what I witnessed there, again, I was very green to politics, but I was completely turned off by what I witnessed, happening there. These elected officials, it was all about how to get back at the other side, backstabbing, corruption. It was horrible. And so I've been jaded by that, right? And I haven't talked to Danielle in years, other than honestly, probably a few years ago when she had me on her radio show to talk about the crisis of missing and murdered. And so when I became aware of her calling the graves of our children fake news, and then, talking about how, the unvaccinated people in Alberta have been the most discriminated against, I was actually stunned. I was stunned because I believe Danielle Smith to be a very smart woman. That is one thing that I remember from working with her. She may not have, the best agenda. I know that she's really smart, and I found that was just completely ignorant of her. I was stunned, and I'm very concerned, Ryan. Sorry, here's my little girl, Alicia.
Oh, well, listen, Brandi, and I know that it feels kind of strange for us to be talking about something so major and so big and so important to people, and then just to be like, hey, thanks, talk to you later.
No, I know.
But this is an ongoing conversation, Brandi. This door is always open. You know that. We are just so, just as colleagues of yours, so proud of you. What the honor and the recognition is so well deserved. The work you're doing is so incredibly important. This audience is on the edge of its seat when you join us. Please thank that beautiful little one for sharing their mama with us this morning. Thank you so much, sweetheart. And Brandi, thank you too. And you go get it back on the road tomorrow. Oh, I should mention this. Let's pump the tires on this. No big deal. No big deal. The 25th anniversary edition of David Suzuki's classic, The Sacred Balance, out next week, October 30th. You, Naomi Klein, and David Suzuki are going to be hanging out at the Chan Center. People can check that out
on
at
the
chancenter.com.
30th. Isn't that insane? I'm going with the legend, Ryan.
Well, you are one. Are you starting to realize? Are you starting to realize? Hey, Brandi, we'll talk to you again soon. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you. Hi, Ryan. Take care.
You got it. Edward R. Murrow Award winner Brandi Morin. She's the author of Our Voice of Fire. I know some of you are going to want to know where you can find that book. We always encourage you to support local wherever you can.
We do.
And so, you can, if you don't find it at your favorite bookshop, the best thing you can do, and you can help Brandi out on this too, is ask them to order it in.
100%.
Ask them to order in 5 copies of it.
And I also threw up a pinned link in the chat here for chapters. And
Attaboy.
The audio version on Audible as well. So
perfect. Thanks, Johnny. So there you go. Brandi Morin, Force of Nature. That conversation was presented by our friends at Local Environmental Services, who encourage you to keep it local. Some people say it's only garbage. Not to them. They believe that communities deserve better. They don't say customers. They're saying communities deserve better. Better prices, better service, more support for local causes. They're passionate about supporting the nonprofits and the charities where they live and work. I saw them out after acquiring Calahoo Waste at the Sturgeon County Mayor's Golf Tournament. Boy, oh boy, are they ever plugged in out there. People in different industries, of course, all finding fits with Local Environmental Services. You can request your quote today at localenvironmental.ca. Don't forget to send us your trash talk on Friday. We'll get into them, presented by Local Environmental. Again, talk at ryanjesperson.com. Our friends at Friesen Brothers want to remind you that the first of the month is less than 2 weeks away, and at Friesen Brothers, that means 15% off grocery purchases of $75 or more. That's a big deal for the family budget. Plus, Oktoberfest is back. Dinner with dessert, all the German favorites, available at the Friesen Brothers Fresh Market location. So that's Stony Plain, the beautiful store in Fort Saskatchewan. That's the one you go to, right, pal? Drumheller, Hinton Hill, Peace River, and their Rabbit Hill location in South Edmonton. That's October 29th and 30th, 10 days from now, 4 to 8 p.m. You can find out more by visiting the Friesen.com website. Our friends at Friesen Brothers, Alberta grown and Alberta owned. Hey, do you have your Covenant Foundation lottery tickets yet? What are you waiting for? November 3rd is the deadline for you to qualify for a life-changing win. to move in, the keys to a $2.2 million dream home. It's life-changing luxury. You can tour the home, see all the details at covenantfoundationlottery.ca. In support of Misericordia and Grey Nuns Hospitals, don't forget also, they're giving away a Jaguar, an Alfa Romeo. They're giving away a BMW. They're giving away a fly fishing trip. They're giving away a trip to Scotland. That was a terrible accent. To Turk and Caicos. You can get your tickets today at covenantfoundationlottery.ca. And hey, I wanted to give a shout out. I talked to you about my pal Graham Duty. Well, he's more than a pal. He's my personal trainer. He's helping me get my life on track. If you're looking to do the same, I want you to check out grahamduty.com. That's Doody, grahamduty.com. Click on the engine room link. You got a thing for indoor rowing? Graham is creating a community for people that maybe don't get out to the gym all the time. You have the apparatus. You want to get fit. Men in particular, are you like in that 40 to 70-ish age bracket? You want to age well? You want a high-touch, personalized training experience? Could be in-person time, customized homework, tailored to your goals. This is what Graham's done for me. A certified executive coach and personal trainer. You can find out more about the Engine Room Indoor Rowing Team. It's a monthly commitment. Better yourself with Graham Duty at grahamduty.com. John Hicks, I'm checking our email notifications yesterday. I'm checking our Twitter notifications yesterday. Mm-hmm. And I see a Real Talker by the name of Laurel. And she's reached out to us, and she says, hey, Real Talk, John Hicks' comments about art really ticked me off. She says, yeah, I'm an artist here. Art is life. She says, I was out walking my dog while listening to Real Talk. Thank you, Laurel. She says, my head almost exploded when Hicks pretty much said he likes music, theater, and dance, but not art. I don't think he realizes how much art is out there that he appreciates unknowingly. Does he not realize the design on his favorite shirt designed by an artist? Fabulous photos taken by an artist. So many things you pick out in a day designed by an artist. Art is vast and visually appealing. I was thinking about making it a trash talk, but I thought maybe we could have some fun with it today.
I took a look at Laurel's. She's a pretty incredible artist.
She's really
herself.
good. Yeah, she does caricatures, and she's really good.
Yeah, so I took a look at her Twitter and everything, and I think that I didn't say I don't like art. I said I don't get top shelf $100 million or more art. And I compared, the picture, Van Gogh, Sunflowers we were talking about, to a picture my wife did in high school where she did a rendering of it in a class. Yeah. And I can't tell the difference. And that's all I meant. I love artists. I love art. I even said, dance, music, acting, graphic design. I can tell when things of that nature of art are good or bad. I just can't look. Like if you took me to a museum and it had the Mona Lisa and, a Da Vinci and a Van Gogh and Jean Baptiste, like even his work kind of confuses me. I just don't have the eye for it. But I think what's really funny is that Laurel kind of got upset that I'm stupid with art. It's like I was kind of insulting myself saying that I don't get it, but I do. I love and respect all artists. So I just wanted to say that again. I think if you listen back to the podcast, that's what I was saying. I never said I don't like art. I said I don't get it. I don't get why some of these paintings, like the Mona Lisa, I look at it, I'm like, this is a beautiful picture of a woman. Obviously, he, the backstory, he was
is it really
in love with her. It was all the stuff.
Yeah.
I get it, but when they cost $100 million, I was looking after Laurel said this, at the top 10 most expensive paintings in existence now in the world, and I was looking at them and I was like, I still don't get it.
Did they say that
they're
piece,
beautiful?
I'm putting you on the spot, but do you remember what the most expensive painting in the world is right now?
Well, it's subjective, right?
I guess, and it could change. Like as soon as someone pays more for something, then that's
the other thing I don't get. Art connoisseurs and who puts these prices on these paintings is something I also don't get. So it was like ranges, right? But the top three, the number one is the Mona Lisa is the most expensive in existence.
And what do they value that, or is it someone will say it's priceless?
I think it's over 200 million or something like that. Like it's ridiculous. Close to 200 million. I think. I don't know. I can't remember. But
Dr. Martin's watching. He says, I totally understand where you're coming from, Johnny. Tony says art is subjective. Like what I like will be different from what other people like.
It's like if I said I don't get the Eagles. And somebody was like, the Eagles are amazing.
Like the cab driver in The Big Lebowski. Get the
Yeah,
fuck out of
and
my
I'd be
cab,
like,
man. Get out of my cab.
I get it, man. The drummer's singing. They've got 4 guitarists. Like, I see the talent, but I just don't like playing it in my car on the way to work. Is that okay?
I hate
and that's
the
what
Eagles,
I was.
man. I hate the Eagles. I just don't want to listen
I
to the
actually
Eagles.
like the Eagles. I just think it's funny that they're so hot and cold. Like, you either love or hate the Eagles, right?
Really?
Like, people are like, yeah.
Who do you think is the well, whatever. Are we going to get down a rabbit hole? I was going to say who's the most polarizing or
It's like
divisive
Hotel
band?
California. People either love or like turn that song off.
I would love Hotel California if you didn't hear it so often, right? I mean, it's just
I
like
never
the
get
classic
tired of
scene
Hotel
from Wayne's
California.
World. Like, isn't it? Oh, no, Stairway to Heaven. No,
I
Stairway to
never
Heaven
get tired
in the
of that
guitar
song.
store. Painter Lee in our live chat says you have to understand art history and what is considered a seminal piece of work that advances art as a whole.
100%.
That's a major point.
So this is what I did yesterday. I'm obviously not going to just, I don't think we argued on Twitter with Laurel, but I'm not going to say things and then not go educate myself. So I went and looked at art, and I looked at like, medieval art compared to today, and I saw the progression of like how they didn't understand perspective before, and then when that came into the fold and
Right.
different, and I get it. I get the like.
See, you already know more about it than me.
Well, I just took
You know
some
what I
time
love?
yesterday
Can I
to
give?
look
I
at
want to give
things,
real
right?
talkers some
And-
insight into John Hicks and what makes you when you are a reader and you are a researcher. You do deep dives into things.
I'm
I
just
can
a
tell.
Googler. Like, if I don't know something, I want to know it right away.
You're perpetually curious, which is the tone that this show wants. That's why you're a great fit
Because
here.
I'm undereducated.
I love this from Erica. This is a great point. Erica says, I may not get a lot of art, but I get why people get it, if that makes sense, which is an amazing way to put it.
I'm with her too. Like,
yeah.
I get it. And somebody just said Nickelback argument. Same thing, right?
But again,
And people
like,
either love
why
or
do
hate
people
Nickelback.
hate? Yeah, I guess. I mean, if I'm Chad Kroger, this is what people can't stand about. Do I dare bring up J.K. Rowling? I know that she's a little. I'm not gonna like Chad Kroger's going. Hang on a second, you're me and J.K. Rowling because J.K. Rowling has sort of become a bit of a troll. Like, I think she's the best-selling author in history, isn't she? The author of the Harry Potter series and everything else. She's one of the best-selling authors in history. But her take on trans identity and they/them pronouns, and I haven't, like, I don't know the story well enough to really dig into it, but people have been disappointed. I mean, like, wide swaths of people have been disappointed. Readers of hers, voracious readers, have felt betrayed because they expected more of a compassionate or empathetic or progressive point of view from J.K. Rowling. And I saw a tweet the other day from her where someone basically said, I'm paraphrasing, like, what's it like to wake up and realize that you've lost millions of fans or whatever?
Yeah.
And she tweeted, I check my most recent royalty check and I sleep just fine. And it's, I mean, it's true.
Nice
but
flex.
nice flex. But it's also kind of like, all right, like, that's not the most, So anyway, the point is, like, there's that sort of division. And then just on the money front of the success front with Nickelback, you think Nickelback cares that they're probably the most
No.
mocked band in Canada? Like, what
Most successful in Canada,
they're the most
right?
successful band probably in Canadian history. With regards to actual album sales, someone's going to call me to the carpet on that fact, and it's probably someone else, like Celine Dion might be. Celine Dion, Brian Adams.
Yeah, but
Who else
Celine
would
Dion is
be like?
she's in Vegas now. That's where artists go to
Yeah.
die, right? But like Nickelback is still here, still touring, still making music, still making money. They're probably like
If Nickelback
Top three
launched
for sure.
a stadium series today, they would sell it out.
I think we're losing listeners as we have this conversation about Nickelback. And
Well,
that's
now that you
that's a
stayed
slight
an hour
against
into the show,
Nickelback.
we're pleased to present Chad Kruger of Nickelback. Sometimes you got to say, Chad, tell us about the most recent Lamborghini purchase.
But even with the J.K. Rowling thing, that's another thing. And I don't want to get too into it because my wife loves the Harry Potter. And I watch it and I'm like, this seems like it's for kids. I don't really get
yeah.
why people are so obsessed with that. But then again, I like the Lord of the Rings series and I watch House of the Dragon, Game of Thrones. So it's all subjective, right?
Yeah.
But the point I was trying to make yesterday is and I think a lot of people are in this boat, not only who are listening, just in general, in the world. You can't look at a piece of art and not be an expert and be like, oh yeah, that's $100 million or that's $50 million. Or if you go in a museum and I was to look at $100 million painting and one that's $2,000, I mean, they're both beautiful.
Sure.
They're both awesome.
Sure.
What makes this one? Because it's older, maybe, I guess. But
Yeah, and
if
it's
they
like
were
who
done in the
painted
same
it,
time
and
frame,
like Painter Lee said, what
Yeah.
it did to the cultural climate, or
If
the
it
artistic-
created a
like,
shift
if
in
it moved music forward, like what set Like, what are some good examples? Like, who have been the culinary geniuses? I mean, you look at like Anthony Bourdain, for example, and how he story told around the culinary arts and arts and travel, or you look at someone that changed the game and brought like an entrepreneur. Like I think of like an Oprah Winfrey, for example, and what she did to advance so many things. And I'm just like off the
Jimi
top
Hendrix
of my head,
with guitar,
Jimi Hendrix with
like,
his guitar, like Stevie Ray Vaughan, probably
pushing the envelope. I get it.
What have you, right? And yeah, amazing stuff. Maybe we should give a shout out to like Joni Mitchell or some, throw some more
shout out to
Canadian
Laurel.
content into there.
She inspired me to go learn more about art, so I followed her. Now,
I love it.
Now she followed me back. So
I love it.
It wasn't an argument. It was more of, I just trying to state exactly what I was going to say. You know me. I love breakdancing and graffiti, and I understand. Like, I can go look at graffiti here in this beautiful city 2 blocks from here and be like, this was done by an amazing tagger, artist, whoever.
Yeah.
And I get that art. Maybe it's because I grew up with it, with music and DJing and stuff. But I'm no art connoisseur, which...
Hey, you're approaching the conversation with humility, right? Which I think is great. Tracy says sports is like art. Like, it's very subjective as well. Some people spend thousands on it. She's absolutely right. Like, you want to go to a National Hockey League game? You want like the worst seats in the house? It's like $100. You want the best seats in the house? I mean, these boxes, people spend $10,000 a game. Right? So Tracy says some spend thousands. I had the opportunity to get Wayne Gretzky's autograph, and I passed on it. I was happy just to read my book. Lee, by the way, Painter Lee follows up and says, next time you go to a gallery, read the artist's statement to see what inspired them to do that body of work, which I think is awesome. That's a great point.
Just to weigh in here on the Nickelback thing, he's done 2 songs with Santana. So obviously if Santana thinks Chad Kroger's pretty good, and he's probably a pretty talented guy, right?
With Carlos Santana.
Just not my cup of tea.
Yeah, Dwayne says the most iconic Canadian band is Rush. That's
true.
bullshit, Dwayne. No, it's not. You think Rush trumps Tragically Hip is the most iconic Canadian? I'm not even going to hear the argument. Real
when
talk.
I think of Canadian rock bands, Rush comes to mind first.
Sure, like in the top 10.
That and Tragically Hip.
In the top 10. But iconic, the word iconic, like, I see a lot of In Gord We Trust. I don't see a lot of In Getty We Trust. No offense to Geddy Lee or the rest of... Okay, we're down a rabbit hole.
Like his voice.
Oh, I mean, Geddy Lee's brilliant. I've seen Rush live, and they're unbelievable. And the drumming, I'm a bit of a casual drummer, and I always fixate on the drums at concerts. And of course, Rush is incredible on that front. Foo Fighters, may he rest in peace. The Foo Fighters drummer that passed away earlier this year, probably the best drumming exhibition I've seen live. You can send us your nomination for the best live show you've ever seen. Give us your take on art, whether it's going to be a submission for Trash Talk this Friday, or maybe we've just prompted you to think. Laurel gets John. No. Johnny gets Laurel thinking. Laurel gets Johnny thinking. And then we hope to get you thinking. Talk@RyanJesperson.com is where you can send us an email. Every Wednesday, we are lucky enough, courtesy of our friends at Tourism Jasper, to head out to the mountains. It's MyJasper Memories. And this week, we want to remind you that we're into week 2. I mean, they've had their first weekend. It's the first, coming up to the second weekend of the Jasper Dark Sky Festival. If ever you're going to explore the universe from the bounds of Earth, the most magical place to do it is Jasper National Park. All right, the second and final weekend of the Jasper Dark Sky Festival is coming up. There's a few key events which I want to tell you about. There's the Friday night package deal. That's coming up in just a couple of days. $20 for the 2 following events. So at 7 p.m. Friday evening, Rob Meyerson's going to pull back the curtain on a story that most people haven't heard, how he helped turn Jeff Bezos' vision for space exploration into reality. You're going to learn about Blue Origin, feats of innovation, flying machines. And then Jay Ingram, the podcaster, the broadcaster, the science communicator, is going to take the stage to talk about what angels might actually look like. All right? Now, on Saturday, this is going to be really cool. Retired Royal Canadian Air Force Major Janelle Janjua is going to deliver a keynote. What it means to be an explorer, what's left to discover and how space and Earth exploration drive each other forward. What an opportunity. And then Dr. Sarah Jane Pell is going to wrap it up. She's come all the way to Jasper from Australia. How cool is that? And she's an accomplished aquanaut. It'll be an informative performance keynote. She's going to take you through a simulated moon crash and describe how you might survive in face of unique and mounting difficulties. It's a lot of fun. Plus, of course, the telescopes and the understanding of the world around us, the insights into that magnificent dark sky. It's the Jasper Dark Sky Festival. You can learn more. You can book your tickets. You can get yourself hooked up for this weekend, a weekend you will never forget, by checking out jasperdarksky.travel. Of course, if you're out there posting photos on Instagram and Twitter, we want to see them. Use the hashtags MyJasper and RealTalkRJ. You could see your masterpiece featured on a future Wednesday right here on Real Talk. Oh, I got to get out there. I start thinking about stuff like that, like what intelligent life outside the parameters of the boundaries of Earth might look like, and why have we not yet found it? And I know this is an audience that's open to dreaming about that kind of stuff. What am I doing?
Queuing up a future spooky UFO.
No, not spooky.
Outer space.
Not spooky.
Paranormal.
Inspiring,
ghost
exciting.
Story themed Friday ahead of Halloween. It's coming up on October. No.
Yeah. We are working on a couple of really cool conversations, and that's because we got Real Talkers chiming in and letting us know what they'd love to hear on the show. Before we wrap, I want to tell you about our friends at Apex Automation. I feel like this is a great opportunity for somebody. You never know who's going to be watching this show, maybe listening to the podcast, an engineer, a professional engineer that's just sick and tired, fed up of feeling underappreciated by their employer. Apex Automation is innovating in industrial control systems engineering and software development solutions for any industrial process. Drafting services, process engineering, electrical and control panel design and fabrication. You know, they're working in upstream oil extraction facilities like SAGD, pipelines, natural gas processing facilities, chemical manufacturing plants in Edmonton, Saskatoon, Vancouver, potash mining in Saskatchewan, robotics, brewing. ApexAutomation.ca, your new career with a team that values your time, could be beginning today. You'll find them under the sponsors tab on our website. At Eden Landscaping, Mike and his team want to remind you that the best laid plans begin with plenty of time. That's why right now is a great time to reach out to them and get the ball rolling on bringing your outdoor space to life. You know, oftentimes they're pulling property reports. They've got to draft these plans. They got to order your construction materials. And we want to hit the ground running in the spring, so why not get started today? Go through those Pinterest boards, show Mike the pages you've ripped out of the landscaping magazines, and find out why they have so many return and referral-based customers. LandscapeEdmonton.ca is where you'll find Eden Landscaping. At St. Albert and Sherwood Dodge, they've got you covered, whether you're looking for a fuel-efficient 4-cylinder machine, maybe something electric like that new Jeep Wrangler 4xE, or maybe you need the big Hemi. Maybe you're looking for the 1-ton dually to pull a horse trailer, to pull a holiday trailer, to fit the family as you get set to hit the road. You can chat with their teams directly online by way of their websites, or go see them in person. Of course, their sales team partnering with their service team to ensure the customer relationships continue through the years you own those vehicles. Sherwood and St. Albert Dodge, proud partners with Real Talk. And of course, the fall blizzard menu is upon us at the Dairy Queens of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park. Feast your eyes on that world-famous pumpkin pie blizzard. I was telling you, I crushed one over the weekend. That thing didn't stand a chance, John. The whipped cream, the real chunks of pumpkin pie. I was wrestling between getting that and the cinnamon roll blizzard, so I'm going to have to hit that one up too. The Dairy Queens of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park. Palisades, Nomeo, Newcastle, Westmount, and Baseline Road. A one bite for you, a one bite for me, a one bite for you, a one bite for me.
Can you put the pumpkin pie and the cinnamon together?
Yeah, they're like buddy. When you're at those Dairy Queens, you make sure you let them know that you're there because you heard about them on Real Talk. Hey, coming up on tomorrow's show, I'm really looking forward to this. We've had this thing booked for like a month because she is in high demand. Psychologist and author Dr. Jody Carrington is going to be joining us. We want to talk about meeting in the middle. We want to talk about polarized society. We want to talk about reconciling with friends and neighbors and family heading into, the holiday season. She's the expert on that. It's a Real Talk you won't want to miss.
Real Talk is hosted by Ryan Jesperson, executive producer Josh Dunford, technical producer John Hicks, general manager Katie Cook-Chivers, account coordinator Lawrence Derlego, human resources Lena Shepard, website design Mike Johnston, voiceover by me, Carrie Skelton. Real Talk's editorial board is Supriya Dwivedi, Ahmed Ali, Brandi Morin, Ann Castleman, Corey Hogan, Harmon Candola, Catherine O'Neill, and Chris Henderson. Member Emerita, Julie Rohr. Real Talk is recorded in Edmonton, Alberta on Treaty 6 territory, the traditional and ancestral territory of the Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, and Nakota Sioux, home to the Métis settlements and the Métis Nation of Alberta. Real Talk is a relay project. For more, check out ryanjesperson.com.